Hello and welcome to Global News Factory. I'm your host Vikrant. The long wait is over now. Jinping and Modi sat across the table in Tianjin, and as expected, what came out was calm, measured, and hopeful. Both leaders, Jinping and Modi, signaled the same thing. Enough of staring at each other's boots on the Himalayan slopes. It is time to look at balance sheets. It is time to prioritize economy. Now, Modi set the tone right away. He said the ties with China have moved in a meaningful direction. He stressed that the border is peaceful after disengagement. So he confirmed that the border with China is right now peaceful. She responded in the same language. He said the meeting will further elevate ties and push for sustained, healthy, and stable development. Now, this is a great day for anyone wanting to see this world a peaceful place, because these are the two most populous nations. They are coming together now. Question is, are India and China now going to be friends again? To answer that question, we need to take a look at history. I want to highlight what exactly caused these tensions between these two giants, because make no mistake, in the 1940s and 50s, India and China were great friends. So what happened after that? What happened in 1950s? It is going to be a useful history lesson for those who are still unaware of the context of the tensions between India and China. The elephant in the room, or should I say the dragon on the border, has not gone anywhere. The Sino-Indo dispute is like a century-old knot that nobody has been able to untie. And frankly, maybe it should not be untied right now. I'm saying freeze it, seal it, lock it away for 50 years, maybe a century. Let the next generation crack their heads over it. For now, what matters is peace at the border, and both Modi and Xi agreed it exists. But this meeting today did not just fall from the sky. The warming up began months ago. In March this year, Jinping quietly sent a letter to Indian President, yes, President, not Prime Minister, Draupadi Murmu. It was short, cautious, but deliberate, a signal that Beijing wanted to test the waters. Now, that letter was immediately placed in Modi's hands, and timing could not have been more perfect. Washington was busy slapping tariffs and trade pressure on both India and China, especially China, and so Beijing extended an olive branch to India. Not long after that, China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi was here in Delhi. The message, "We are willing to fix things." China even promised to address India's concerns about fertilizers, rare earths, and boring machines by reviewing export restrictions. So, the road to Tianjin started months back. Add to that the fact Xi and Modi also briefly met last year in Russia's Kazan at the BRICS Summit. This was all groundwork before Trump even entered the White House with his tariff tantrums. Now let's get into why the border dispute is so stubborn. The line that separates India and China is not even a proper line. It is a colonial drawing, the McMahon line, sketched by British rulers. Now India accepts it, China rejects it. Remember, before 1950, India did not even share a border with China. India bordered Tibet. Then came 1950, China invaded Tibet. That is when the trouble began. Beijing's claim is simple. Tibet was ours, so everything Tibet claimed, including Aksai Chin and Arunachal Pradesh, is also ours. Delhi's counter-argument? The McMahon line already marked these regions as India's. What followed was mistrust, outposts, and eventually the 1962 war. China swept across Aksai Chin and grabbed it. They also pushed deep into Arunachal, but they had to withdraw later because the Himalayan conditions were too brutal for them.
Lhasa, the capital of Tibet, and the abode of the Dalai Lama, had come under the control of the Chinese army. Towards the end of the 50s, Chinese troops started intruding into Indian territory in Ladakh, Parahoti, and the northeast. In the uninhabited Aksai Chin Plateau of Ladakh, they constructed a road across Indian territory. Indian patrols were fired upon, killing many. Nehru sent a strong protest and invited the Chinese leaders for talks. India maintained that the McMahon Line and the Himalayan watershed were the boundary according to the Treaty of 1914.
And the political baggage did not stop there. India granted asylum to the Dalai Lama and thousands of Tibetan refugees. Now, China saw this as India meddling in their domestic affairs and encouraging Tibetan independence movement. Meanwhile, India's forward policy of planting posts right next to Chinese positions looked provocative to Beijing. Result? War, bitterness, and decades of suspicion.
Chinese incursions into Indian territory increased in the northeast and in Ladakh. On the 20th of October 1962, the Chinese army launched a massive attack on India, both in Ladakh and in the northeast. The Indian army was not prepared for such a full-scale invasion. Nehru was shocked by this unprovoked act of treachery.
Instances in history where one country, that is India, has gone out of her way to be friendly and cooperative with the Chinese government and people and to plead their cause in the councils of the world, and then for the Chinese government to return evil for good and even go to the extent of committing aggression and invade our sacred land.
There were some domestic factors too that led China's Mao Zedong to go to war with India. In the late 50s and 60s, China was going through tough times. The Great Leap Forward, a Chinese government campaign to boost the economy, it had completely failed, causing widespread famine and economic problems. Now, Mao Zedong faced public anger over that, and a strong military action against India could help rally support and show strength. So, Zedong went for it. This was also one of the several factors why Zedong went at war with India. Now, fast forward to today. China still controls Aksai Chin. India calls it illegal occupation. China insists history backs its claim. But history is tricky because if old maps and empires start dictating borders, then India could just as well demand land stretching from Afghanistan in the west to Indonesia in the east. Clearly, nobody wants to open that Pandora's box. So, where do we go from here? Let's be blunt. The only true solution is if China returns Aksai Chin to India and drops its claim over Arunachal. But she cannot afford that. It would look weak inside China, and India understands this. We understand this. On the other side, no Indian Prime Minister, especially Modi, can ever afford to surrender even more land to China because they are already having Aksai Chin, which was India's part before 62. That would be political suicide for any Indian Prime Minister. And that's why freezing the conflict is the smartest option right now. Don't try to solve it now. Just lock the guns, seal the borders, and shake hands over business. Because here is the truth. India and China are not just neighbors. They are two of the world's biggest economies, biggest populations, and biggest emerging powers. Together, they can shape Asia. Together, they can blunt Western hegemony, Western pressure. Washington would love nothing more than Delhi and Beijing bickering forever. It weakens both, it keeps both distracted, it allows the West to dominate trade and technology. But if India and China join hands, even without solving the border issue, they will tilt the global balance. Fertilizers, rare earths, tunnels, trade, tech, everything will flow. Modi and Xi seem to understand this. That's why Tianjin matters. It is not about drawing maps, it is about drawing profits. And while the West is busy selling weapons, war, sanctions, Asia's giants might just decide to sell peace, trade, and hope. For now, the border is silent, and maybe silence itself is the first step towards something bigger. And that is all for now. Thank you very much for being with me. You're watching GNF.